We have clearance to go ahead. And Dorothy's here. Good morning. All right, are we ready? All right, welcome to the July meeting of the St. Mary's County Board of Library Trustees. And I'm John Johnston, Vice President, sitting in for Michael Dunn, who is our president, who is unavailable for this meeting. And if we could go around the table and introduce.
Sharon Fitzsimmons.
John Walters.
Gwen. Dorothy Waters.
Oh, I'm Michael Blackwell, Director at St. Mary's County Library, not board member, but advisor.
All right. So the first item is the approval of the June minutes. Do we have any questions or comments about them? If there are no questions about the minutes, and entertain a motion to approve. You hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My motion carries. See here. And for the president's report, we have the monthly expense ledger. And I had a question about it, but I'll defer to any of the members who have a question first.
I have a question on page 1 of 4, please. The Dell new computers for
Yeah.
38.9.
Yeah, that was my question too, as to whether they'll be used for the kiosks or for the patron use, or whether for employees, or both.
I'm sorry, what page, just to make sure I'm.
Just the very first item.
Oh, right. Those are computers that we have needed for 2 to 3 years. They will replace some of the staff computers and some of the patron computers.
They're
I
almost
guess my
all
question-
primarily patron computers. For example, Michael, I said, do you want a new computer? I said, no, mine's working fine. Almost all going to the public. And we try to replace them every 3 years, but we're a little behind schedule because of funding. But that will go to mostly to the customers at the 3 branches.
And
we
where
did-
were these things sourced?
From Dell.
Straight from Dell.
Right. We have a working relationship with them, and our IT guy talks to them about what we need and does them, and we have a contract, so it's a deal.
All right.
And we did budget for this year. This is actually a fiscal year 23. So
Right.
it was paid, this is mostly June payments. So it was fiscal year 23. It was part of our budget for that year. We just waited till the end of the year to make sure we could afford it.
How many computers is this?
30?
30, yeah.
I have a
believe it was
question on
33.
page 4, please. About the 4th and 5th one down from the top, 2 court orders. What was that all about?
We had a problem customer at one of our branches, and we had to obtain a peace order. And those are the fees for doing that. And one does have to, pay to go into the court.
One customer 2 times or 2 customers?
One customer, several concerns.
Different concern. All right. Is that the same as a no trespassing order?
It's pretty much, it's a peace order. And a peace order basically says that the person may not go to one of our locations because it was concerns about interacting with one of our employees. And so the person in question may come to our other 2 branches and is welcome there. And we're just hoping when that lapses come June 4th, I'm sorry, not January 4th, that everything will be back to normal.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that is one that's one court order. You just have to pay fees to two different places.
Yes.
And my last question here, bottom of the page 4, account analysis charge. What do they analyze for us?
Very good question. That's just a standard PNC fee, and we see that on a fairly regular basis.
It's a monthly charge. They do create an analysis statement that goes to our accountants. And I think that it's a statement that's required, but we still get charged for it.
And they do it every month,
Monthly statement.
Yeah.
and they keep our accountant informed every month.
Well, I do. Yes.
You do. Based on the statement they generate.
I send all statements to our accountants at the end of every month so that she can reconcile what I've done in the accounts.
So it keeps cycling back as to why we're getting this charge, except that they can.
Yes, because it's a banking fee that they can charge to a business.
It's been there for
Part of
months.
part of business fees.
We need to rethink banks.
Yeah, I
No
had,
further-
yeah, I think this come up before, but I've seen other business accounts at PNC. And it just, because it's a business account, they charge for this service.
Yeah,
Everybody.
it's not, yeah, we're not unique in this. And periodically we talk to PNC and ask them to analyze our accounts. We've had offers to go with other banks, and frankly, nobody has managed to do any better in terms of managing the money and the fees that are charged. And the good thing is when somebody offers is that PNC then says, well, we can beat that. So I think the last time we did that was 3 years ago, but
But they're a bank. What do they manage?
you need to talk to the banks. Frankly, so I'm the treasurer for the mediation board. We get charged things, and it's sort of like because they can, as you say. We don't necessarily have them do any services for us. They just hold the money.
Are we earning any money on that money?
We earn a negligible amount in interest, but we do earn some.
And that fee is typical for any sort of for-profit or nonprofit entity versus like a home customer.
My understanding is that as a nonprofit, you do slightly better. And ours is a nonprofit account.
All right.
But I think that's true. It's considered a business account, like a personal checking account. They don't have this fee. It's because it's a business account. It's
Yep.
a fee.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
I had one more question about the monthly expenses, and I've seen it before, but I was wondering about the credit card miscellaneous supplies. What kinds of things go on the credit card? The things like paper.
It's truly miscellaneous. No, paper you'll see well, actually, yes, because all of our Amazon accounts, Amazon buys go onto a credit card. We used to have Amazon used to bill us, so you would see an Amazon bill, but they changed their accounts and they don't allow it anymore. So those, all of our Amazon billing goes onto one of our credit cards. So all of our supplies are coming through the credit card now. But we have several of our admin staff that have credit cards, so it can be sometimes some of our branch manager may need to go buy a few supplies for a program at the last minute. Our virtual services person will put, they have a few of their reoccurring contracts that go on their credit card, or the digital services that she can buy directly because it's a simpler process. And then any one that we use as a vendor that we don't have a standing account that they can bill us after, we'll have to use a credit card.
Staff development expenses as well.
Yes. Thank you. That's a big one. Staff development usually goes on credit cards because we're paying for conferences and hotels and things like that with credit cards.
Does the card we use have any points or cashbacks or anything?
Yes, we earn some cash back, and it and then we get it reapplied to the credit card every quarter. It's reapplied as, in our budget, it's a, other income.
Thank you.
Are any further questions about the expense ledger? All right. Accept a motion to approve them.
So moved.
You hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And for the treasurer's report, the Tressa is not here. We have her report. She submitted ahead of time.
I think I've detected some anomalies in it. So if you look on her report, it says account value, I'm in the left-hand column now, 331.23, share price of 938. Everybody find that number?
Mhm.
Left-hand column. Which it's like this.
It should be the next page after the expenses.
I've got an extra one here.
I don't have a sheet with any of those numbers.
Yeah. I don't see it in my packet either.
You don't see this?
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, the Vanguard?
And then this one, this is the summary.
Thank you.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh, never mind. I take it back. I do have that, but I don't see anything for,
Total. But I think she's taken off. Put on her summary.
Okay, everybody find where I'm starting here? All right, share price 938. All right, on 331.23. But if you look at the Vanguard statement, it says the beginning share price was 936. And I'm looking at this one. Right. And therefore, the change in share price corrected is not 19 cents down, it's 15 cents down. I'm open to have my arithmetic corrected.
I would assume that that's probably just a typo on Tressa's.
Now, let's look at the right-hand column on the same report, where it says the beginning balance is 16,916 and 57 cents. Looking at the Vanguard number, I'm getting 16,880.50. Not 16,916 and 57. Yeah, 16880.50.
Is that a case where we would go ahead?
Yeah, I don't know. The first one, I would think it's a typo because her total is the same, which matches
Yeah.
on a sheet. So
Well,
maybe it's a
type
typo,
is so tiny, you could look at that 6 and read it as an 8.
but the other one, I don't know.
the account value in 630, however, is identical. So I'm not sure why that, if that was an amount she had from last month. Since she's not here, we can't ask, but the account value is the same on the right-hand column at $16,743.33.
That is correct. It's only at the top
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
we're off by $46.
It is possible that she pulled from the previous quarter as a start instead of.
I'm sure that's what
you know,
happened. Yeah.
It's probably, again, just a mistake.
No, I don't think we can.
And the
approve
account
report
value
as
on the
we've gotten
original
it.
is also correct at the end. $64,149.11. So it's just those two initial numbers that appear to be not correct, but the final amounts here are. If you wish to hold off a vote on this until next month, you know, you can do that.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was going to propose. Yeah, we can hold off on that until August.
Do we need a motion to do that, John?
Michael, do we need a motion to defer?
just to make it official, I would say, yes, you probably should go on ahead.
Yeah.
All right, I move that we defer approval of the treasurer's report pending a corrected report.
All right. Do we hear a second? All those in favor? Aye.
You'll see that there is also the OPEB statement for you ending June 30th of 2023. And just as a quick summary, it was a good month in that we ended up almost $48,626.43 to the good. And year to date, it's only 99,000. So about 50% of the expansion of that growth came in the June month, and we can hope that's a taste of things to come. Later, I'll have some questions for you about how you wish to next meet with asset strategy.
All right. Next item, we don't have anything for the Smyrla report this month. The meeting that was originally scheduled for this past Tuesday had to be deferred, and we're still working on scheduling a new date. So, you can report back in August. And the next, the celebrations.
All right. Well, thank you. We did celebrate yesterday with Christine, who has 5 years here at Leonard Town Library, and very happy, obviously, when somebody has a significant milestone. So we do have some hip hip hoorays. The first one is for Brian Young at Young's at Lexington Park, who suggested at our customer services putting in a holder for canes and umbrellas. So people who have those then want to sit down at the customer service desk or conduct business there, have a place to park those. And we've had a number of customers be very grateful for that. So Brian, thank you so much for your commitment to improving access and thoughtful customer service here at the library. The next three are for the Teams team. We are undergoing a major transition to Microsoft Teams. That's a regional thing, and Smyrla is the one who we're contracting for those services. But basically, we're moving from being primarily Google-based in some ways, where we keep documents, and where our intranet is located, to Microsoft Teams. And this is a major transition, and we're using it as an opportunity to update a lot of old forms and just make sure that a number of things that we've been doing are sort of in the right place so we can all find them. It's giving a new chat feature. It's giving us the opportunity to meet better sort of across the system. We were previously using Slack, and now we sort of have an integrated system for everything we do, including video calls. And we're going to investigate whether or not we can use that to replace our phone system. We can't do that this year, but for next year, we're hoping possibly it might give us some cost savings in how we do our telephones. But so the people we are recognizing for that are Sarah Stevenson, Belinda Lloyd, thank you, Belinda, and Brittany Cornish, who have been instrumental in making this transition happen. So thank you to all of you for doing something. And we're still in the process of kind of learning, but our staff are embracing it pretty well. So I'm very pleased with this, and I think it is giving us an opportunity to improve internal communication. So thank you so very much. Go ahead and take a look at the fiscal year 23 budget. This is not final, and will not be until such time as our accountant has reviewed it. And Belinda is working on that now. We still have a couple of outstanding invoices from last year that need to be paid in order to make this final. But you can kind of see where we may have a little bit of funds that were not spent, and that's primarily in personnel and health insurance. And personnel is primarily due to vacancy credits. We don't have a lot of, vacancies all at once, usually. But what we have then is a person will leave and we need to go find the replacement. And so there's a period where nobody's getting paid. So there's a little bit possibly of balance there, a little bit of possible balance in our health services. The expenses were not quite so high as we were expecting them to be. Those will be offset by other areas, starting on page 2, where, for example, the utilities, the water, the telephones were more expensive than we had anticipated. So there's cost overages there. Similarly, in office supplies, staff development went over, and a lot of that's grant funded. But so we then have a little bit of an underage in page 3 in our professional services, only $359, not a lot. So at some point, and obviously the larger one is going to be the technology budget, where we were not anticipating one server sort of needing to be upgraded. And we do have a list of all the upgrades that should be happening next year. So we're not anticipating that happen again. You will, once we have kind of some final numbers here, be asked to do a budget reconciliation that you'll vote on to move money, and you'll be given the exact accounts and what's going to be moved. We won't know what our sort of actual number is until we review with both accountant and auditor, but we are anticipating maybe a small fund balance increase for the year. We'll see what that is, remembering that something like a friend's donation of $60,000, which we didn't have a chance to spend, is not really something that can be used in many cases. And we do need to talk to the friends about how they want money spent. So the other thing to remember is we're not going to be getting any new infusions of money from either the state or the county until August. So right now, because of how the fiscal year budget goes, we're running on that fund balance. So we'll just kind of have to see where all of that ends up being. But this is kind of what we're thinking the end of the year is going to look like. But again, it's not official. Did you want to say something, Belinda? Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that on that budget, items in green, this was for me, but items in green mean that we have received everything. So that is the final number. So there were only a couple items that I had outstanding. I'm still waiting on the Leon water sewer trash bill, which I spoke to them this morning and asked them to send an email copy to me, which they won't normally do, but they said they would for end of year because I've been waiting. And then the accounting line on yours is still black, but I did receive that bill yesterday, I think. So that one is up to date. The reason that salaries are still black is because the first pay period of fiscal year 24 actually contains, of the 14 days, 12 within fiscal year 23. So the accountants will accrue back into fiscal year 23, probably close to $100,000. I'm assuming. I don't know, because they make that calculation for me. So that's why that's in green, and that won't be as big a surplus as it is right now.
Yeah. So we'll have to see how much, what the total figures are once the accountant and Belinda are done with the work. So I'd still say we're probably looking at a slight overage, but again, we need to look at something like the Friends money as kind of not being part of our general operating fund when we look at the final picture for everything. So just kind of a preview, and with the fiscal year just starting, we're not really going to review this year's budget. You saw what it was last month when you approved it. So any
All right.
questions or concerns about this one?
We have received though from the county at the end of June, I take it, the money for July, August.
No,
No,
we do not get our first FY24 infusions of money from either the state or the county until August every year. So I believe I think in 2021, if I can remember this correctly, one of them, and I believe it was the state, gave us an infusion like July 30th or something. But the year after that, it was August 10th. And the county gave it August 10th to August 15th. So we work from our fund balance for July and half of August. Now the money
And-
will go back. Like that's not money that's gonna stay, but we have to use that fund balance to operate in July and August.
and what happens? When is the next payment after that?
After August,
Yeah.
every 2 months.
So September, October should arrive probably very late in August.
No,
Our
that will
first
arrive.
payment for July arrives in August. Our first payment from either the state or the county does not arrive till August. Then we get our second payment in October from
October,
both
yeah.
the state and the county. And then December, and then February,
So it's always 2 months in arrears.
pretty much.
Does the school system operate on the same procedure?
I have no idea, but this is when the county gives us our money.
Yes.
I'm sure it's because they're closing their books too, but I
Sure.
don't know. I assume everybody has to work from a fund balance
Yeah,
at some point.
Because that's not the same fiduciary relationship as like recreation and parks, for example.
Yeah, I don't know how or when they give everybody else money, but that's when they give us money. And I don't even receive one year I received a statement from the county telling me when they would put the money in. And I don't think I did last year. I don't think I got one last year, and I haven't gotten one for this year. So I don't always look
I did give you one this year.
for the dates.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
yeah,
then
but
I just missed it. My
it seems those dates are fungible.
Yeah, they are.
Um,
They are
And
not.
I guess the other thing I'd remind you of is that this past year, the county gave us the remainder of what we were doing. What was it, March?
Actually, I think it was December.
Yeah, they
accidentally did-
basically just said, here's the money for the rest of the year. Okay, it's fine. It's just that it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of figure out when we're going to be receiving money, but we got it all.
Yeah, they actually, when they did that, they said they made a mistake, but they wouldn't take the money back. So it was just, so normally they would have given us the last 3 infusions every other month, but they accidentally gave them all at once.
So the every other month thing in arrears, is that then more or less consistent?
Yes,
throughout
it's the exact amount every month, every other month, excuse me. They take,
Arrears.
well, you can think of it in the rears. I'm sure they don't. They just take that total amount, divide it by 6, because they make us 6 payments, and then they start the first one and do it 2 months after that.
So if they hadn't, would you get your last payment? Would it be in July?
It's June. We get our last.
You would
payment-
get your last one in June.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we got our last state payment in June, like actually the end of June. So all that money counts towards FY23, but really that's probably what we're functioning on for FY24 for a little while.
Right.
So because we would have used that final payment last year to start this year or this past year.
What's your typical payroll every 2 weeks?
$104,000. However, this will be our first one with the new pay, so I'll let you know on next month what it is, but I haven't
You're-
calculated it.
If your fund balance is $60,000, how do you run 2 payrolls?
It's not our fund balance. That's what we expect to use this year from the fund balance.
Okay,
The fund balance is our bank account.
right.
The fund
okay.
balance goes up and down, and we're trying to work
It's
with
more than a
the,
couple 100,000.
not
covering
always. There are times when it's down to 150. So we're trying to work with our accountants to get some idea rather than here's our bank balance of what the fund balance is. And we hope to be able to report that to you by November, when we might get the report from the auditor. So you can get some idea of kind of more exactly what we're dealing with, as opposed to simply, all right, here's what's on hand. It's not like we've got this fund sitting there that we say, this is the fund balance, and that's money set aside that we don't have any other use for.
So I think we talked about this in previous meetings, and John, I'm sure you have the records of this when we were talking about how much to move from the fund balance into OPEB. And we talked about specifically that payroll that has to remain in balance because of this exact question. So I think we have rough numbers on that in previous paperwork,
We do.
but we were wanting to go to a full 2 months, which would include that the salaries for the 2 months, plus all of the other pieces of
Yeah.
Right, but
all of
also just a
those-
reminder that last payment from the state of it's approximately $150,000 for last fiscal year we're using
Mhm.
for this, because even though technically it was spent, it's still cash on hand. Does that make sense?
So we know from the expense reports that we're using PNC. Are we banking anywhere else?
Well, no.
No, we have 2 accounts at PNC, and we have previously banked with at least 3 other places in my research of our history. Bank of America, I believe, was the last one. There was one before that, Citibank or something. So we have periodically changed banks when we thought we could find a better deal. We did readdress with PNC when I first started in 2021. And they made us some deals, a few small deals to kind of keep us with them. So yes, we do periodically check, but PNC is our bank at the moment. Our MLGIP account, which is the Maryland Library Investment Pool, I believe is what it is. It's considered an investment pool, and it is partially owned by the government and us. I mean, it's our money, but they have access to that account to put money in. So that's a PNC account, and we don't have any say in that one.
Right.
It's a Maryland account.
So is that where the money comes from to fund what we spend?
Some of it, that's the state, that's where the state drops the money. The county puts it directly into our PNC account.
So we have no banking relationship with community.
No.
So as we look at the flow in and out of PNC, what's the high water mark when we get money?
Do you mean how much is in there at one time?
Highest time?
I'd say around 200 to 250 most of the time, because I try to keep it at that, and the rest will stay in our MLGIP account
Okay, which you will then pull over as the 250 decline.
as needed.
All right. Thank you.
Community Bank is merged with another bank now. Community Bank of the Chesapeake has just merged. So they're going to be a new bank as of about a week from now.
We're not using them for anything.
No. The foundation uses them, but that's a separate organization.
Right.
So if no other questions, we'll move on to our statistics. And I want to concentrate primarily on our statistics for the year, the fiscal year of last July 1 through this June 30th. And you can see those on page 1 primarily, but 1 and 2 we'll be looking at mostly. You do get some monthly breakdowns as well there. And it's all pretty good news. The circulation is up about 2%, and just about 400,000 for the original circulation, and we do two circulations. One is original checkouts. Here's what people are getting, for the first time. Then we also factor in renewals there. So the renewal circulation is 871,000. And if you throw in the circulation from digital, which did grow a very nice 11% on the year, we're over 1 million in circulation again. So that's good news. We're not quite at our highest pre-pandemic numbers, but we're getting back there. And then if you look at our events, obviously up considerably over the previous year and a 94% growth there. Our event attendance up, not surprisingly, again, compared to the previous year, substantially. Meeting room use climbing, visitor use climbing. All these things are suggesting a strong comeback from the pandemic, but we're still not at what our highest numbers were, and we're going to be, again, continuing to work to get there. We're working on, getting the sort of highest circulating collection that we can. We're working more on marketing. Obviously, having the more events is going to be really great for our circulation because people come to the library and then they check things out. So a very strong year for us as a comeback. We're not finished. We are not satisfied, but this is a great start after the pandemic. On page 2, if we could look at the Tri-County circulation, you'll see that while we grew and we still have a very healthy lead over Calvert and Charles, that they are growing back faster than us. We're hopeful that having the change to our budget with an additional amount from both state and really thank you, county, for that we'll be able to do a bit more with that. And they have substantially more for programming and for staffing, for full-time staffing. So we're hoping that we can extend our lead there, but they are, being better funded, are better able to catch up to us. So questions about our statistics for the year?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the first is I'm comparing the numbers on the circulation versus the numbers on the budget report, specifically looking at utilities. And it seems like per person, Lexington Park is more expensive than Leonardtown. I didn't know if we attribute that to it being such a newer building that it's more energy efficient, or if there was some other thing that's causing utilities at Lexi to be higher.
Well, I would say that the primary factor there is the 20-year-old, 21-year-old HVA system at Lexington Park. It is not efficient. It does frequently break down. It struggles to keep up with the temperature in many instances in the building. And this system, being 18 years newer, is substantially more efficient. So there is that. I would say that there has been improvement in glass. So Lexington Park does have a lot of glass, but I would say that these glasses reflect better, maintain the temperature better. So that's probably the main thing that's going on there. I don't know about insulation. They've just done a new roof cover at Lexington Park. Maybe that will help. So there's a lot of factors involved with that, but it's primarily going to be the age of the building. This part of the facility is about 2,000 square feet larger than Lexington Park. I would imagine that it really is just that efficiency gained in materials and in the HVA system. And there is some interest in solar power for the libraries. We did apply for a solar power grant at Lexington Park, and unfortunately, we did not get that. but the county is considering for these locations putting in a area outside over the parking lot with solar power on top of it. And it's got a couple of advantages. A, it does provide shade to the vehicles so that on a 100-degree day, as we've been, or at least heat index we've been having, you go out there and put your hands on the steering wheel and go, ow. But the power on top is the real plus. And I don't know, do any of you have solar power on your homes?
You know, or if we had that done with our parking lots, would some of the power go directly to the building or for the library, would be, or to go to the county's accounts?
You know, I would imagine that it's going to be to try to cover the electric use at the location, but if it's an efficient enough system, there may be extra generated. So I was just going to bring it up because although my home is fairly small and it's surrounded by a lot of big trees and I couldn't put in a lot of solar, I did. My utility costs are $15 a month versus spending about $110 a month to pay off the solar, but I was paying $135 before. So, you know, I think especially as solar costs come down, this is something we really want the library to investigate, and we'll look at more grant opportunities, but the county is starting to talk about that. So we can be excited about that.
So question on Lexington Park, they're smaller, but they're older.
Yeah.
Have they taken advantage of the advances in lighting?
Yes, the county has put in new lighting systems. Well, not really systems, but bulbs, and they've transferred them over. So yeah, I don't think that there's any efficiencies being lost there. We are talking right now with SMECO. They're they're going to look at data from all 3 libraries, and we're working with the county on that to try to analyze costs. So we got emails saying, gee, it looks like there's a lot of power being used at Lexington Park at night. What's going on? So I have a meeting next week with a SMECO representative to start that process. So with any luck, we might be able to identify some efficiencies there and maybe cut down the use of the power. I'm not certain what their ideas will be, but we'll be keeping you informed about that.
Is the new lighting LEDs?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 questions I had here. One was kind of beyond this, obviously beyond the scope, but do we have a sense at Shaw Hall of which neighborhoods are the primary source of patrons there? And you don't have to have the answer at the moment, but
we
I was gonna
can
ask
we can
something
do
similar.
heat maps of use through our service, Laura Orange Boy. We can do heat maps of use, and if you're curious about that, we can look and see.
right.
So
I mean, it's primarily Country Lakes and Golden Beach.
I was curious to know if we were picking up any from just across the county line.
Oh, absolutely. At one point, it was almost like 17% Charles County residents, but I think that's actually gone down a bit, but
All right.
we have looked at that in the past.
And our website statistics, are we using something like Google Analytics for that?
for gathering statistics,
Yeah, where it says website sessions.
I think she just switched from Google Analytics to something else.
Or website. Sarah can answer that one. But I do know it's not Google Analytics anymore because they weren't capturing a lot of what we were doing. So I do know she's using a different service, but I don't know.
All right.
But we can try to find out by next meeting for you.
That must have curiosity. Yeah.
And then for staffing everything that we use with Orange Boy, like I said, it's but they also do a lot of our kind of market penetration and that type of data as well. So we can see all of that.
Okay.
Simply Analytics.
I'm sorry.
Simply Analytics
Okay,
is the
thank you.
service we use.
thank you though.
Late
you.
model keys in it?
Mine, that's right.
Said that, I'm sorry, Sarah said that Simply Analytics has better privacy.
Nice to know.
And are they able to, they're able to heat map based on circulation, how many books are checked out according to the address on the card that's checking them out? Is that the
Yeah,
kind of
it
heat map
bounces
we don't-
against our integrated library system Polaris. But librarians are really zealous about guarding privacy. We can see it, nobody else gets to. Nobody gets the email addresses, nobody gets any information about any of our folks. But yeah, we can see based on the card address where that happens. And as we go to student cards, it gets complicated because we don't necessarily have an address for all of them. But for the most part, we can tell.
Fantastic. I was going to ask a follow-up question, actually. I was looking to know if we have any way to measure demographics for visitors.
We do not.
Okay.
You would have to ask that question on the library application, and that would not be something that we'd want to do. The only kind of thing we could do would be a rough guess based on what we see walking in, but we don't really look at that. We again are really zealous about guarding privacy and not collecting information that we don't think we absolutely need. I do have a demographics report coming up for you, but it's up staff. So
So it made me curious because if we're looking at and talking about, and we have previously talked about your strategy for the next year, that would be an important piece of information, I think, to have, and might be something to look into as we look to hire someone to develop the strategy to find out who the library is serving and where there might be gaps across the community.
that's a very difficult thing to measure who's not using it. But our heat maps do tell us where things are being used. And I've looked at them for our digital use, and there's just to sort of see, as I was doing some state presentations, and it looks from our heat maps that there's really no areas of the library that are not, no areas of the county that are not using the library, but you can tell by looking at them that there'll be a larger cluster in some spaces than others. So it's really difficult to measure who's not using it or get feedback from who's not using it. But we will do our best to try to capture some of that. And I'll talk a bit more about moving forward with that strategic planning in a couple minutes here.
All right.
But won't the mobile library take care of some of that too? Aren't you looking at the different areas? Where
Yes.
that's set up?
That's going to be more targeted use, but what we're hopeful is that as we develop the routes, that's some area, say far south, or that might be in 7th District where it's a long way to a library, and especially kids may not have such easy access, that we'll be able to reach into those areas better. Yes, that is one of the aims.
So just to give you an example, I can show it on the screen. This is an example of what we can see. Good. And it's fairly even. So this is just by census tract, but you can see that we have a lot of data. But like Michael said, we don't like as the board and everything, but we do use this data to try to inform our decisions. And this is using Orange Boy, our product that we talked about a little bit. But we can look by branch and different things like that as well. So this is the market penetration of the county by census tract.
So the
Per zip
darker
code?
colors are greater.
Yes, so
Yeah.
it looks like we're really amazing on PAX, but there's just not a ton of people on PAX, but they're using the library, so that's fantastic. But the rest of the county, because that would be the zip code that they have associated with their card. And so you can see that we're super high on Patuxent River. Over 50% of the people who live on Patuxent River are using the library, which is fantastic. But having a market penetration of you know, it's usually around 30% average for the county is actually very good for a public library.
Thank you.
And you can see lighter areas where there may be less market penetration. Those can also correspond to much less population density. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and move along then to our fiscal year 23 annual report. And you have a one pager here that Laura has prepared, but Laura has done the annual report. And Laura, I'm going to let you go ahead and take us through that. We should have the online version, and we are using online, you know, so we've got the one pager if people ask for it. So for example, next Tuesday, the county wanted a, well, we can't have just the virtual information we need. Well, here you go. This is what we've got. But so we primarily do things virtually to save paper and frankly, improve the graphics quite a bit. So Laura, let's go ahead and run through this.
Okay, so the highlights is most of the data in here. We just added some kind of fun things as well. Oh. There we go. Okay. So we just highlight some of the different things that we did this year. We had a lot of really successful partnerships that we're very proud of, including with the Art Council, the Friends of St. Clements Bay, who are the ones who did our front yard project here at Leonardtown, the Protection Partnership, Blue Star Families, Maryland Humanities, the Health Department, and many other smaller projects throughout the year. Truly, our partners are a big way that we're able to have such impact. Having strategic partnerships is a really important component of what we do at the library, and it really extends our reach. We're also really excited about the mobile library, as you guys all know. We had hoped that it would be in this past fiscal year, but luckily we were able to bring on our mobile library outreach coordinator and the mobile library outreach librarian. And the work they have been doing is amazing. You've already been given a presentation on that, so I won't go into it too much. But they really have been reaching areas of the community that we've never been able to reach before. And it's really exciting. One of the ones I'm personally most excited about is the outreach to the Spanish-speaking community, which is very new for us and I think really, really important. And they have really made big inroads there. And then also just that the makerspace at Leonardtown also opened this fiscal year and has been really a popular component here at Leonardtown Library. So over 1 million items were checked out. We have all kinds of fun things. If you haven't been in the library recently, which you're in one right now, so you can check it out. We have more than just books, obviously, audiobooks, DVDs, ukuleles, hotspots, a little bit of everything. These were our most checked out books. And what's mine and yours was our most popular adult fiction. That was the One Maryland One book choice for last year. And I will be honest, that is almost always our most popular fiction. So whatever book is chosen for One Maryland One book becomes very, very popular. And then these are the other most popular. Diary of a Wimpy Kid is always competing to be one of our top spots. And then Hunger Games and Harry Potter are always duking it out for young adult fiction. But Harry Potter did make a scene. They made it as audiobook. So the most popular digital audiobook.
And for children, Pete the Cat is perennially popular. I always read Pete the Cat. Every year the county has a sort of session where people can go and learn more about the county. And they ask like the health department and the sheriff's department and the library to come present them. So I always read Pete the Cat. It's just a lot of fun.
Definitely worth checking out. This is specifically digital. We're excited about the 11% increase that has been increasing rapidly since the beginning of COVID. So this is actually a lower increase than we've been seeing, but it's still a really awesome one. So over 160,000 digital items were checked out in 2023. So you can get ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, music, movies, etc. And we do have Hoopla and Libby, which are the two services we have right now. And we are planning to launch Palace in hopefully September, which is another service that we will be able to use. And that is Michael's. He's kind of talked to you about it before. So that's one. And then we have 60 online resources. And the new ones this year, we added the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and a service called Wowbrary, which is an email that would come as you sign up for this email, and it sends you all of the books that we've purchased in the last week or two. And so if you're interested in kind of what's new at the library, that's a really great e-newsletter service that will automatically tell you what's coming.
Can I clarify, is that new books or new titles?
So it's new titles.
Okay.
And it does kind of curate it. So it's not 100% of everything that's new. But you can also get more specific with it. Like you can say, I'm interested in children's books, or I'm interested in different genres, and it will specifically tell you kind of what's coming into the library for that genre. So we had over 300,000 visitors in the libraries this year. We had 1,400 programs and nearly 30,000 attendees to those programs. We've had programs of all different types. This is another thing that we've presented to you a little bit before, but everything from crafting to boating safety and everything in between. And so we try to provide a little bit of something for as many different audiences as we can, all ages from babies to seniors. So we try to cover that. Our mobile library outreach team really got to work, and they coordinated staff to attend 125 outreach events throughout the county, and over 8,000 community members were reached in those events. And so that's everything from like a story time on base to big events like the county fair and the Juneteenth festivals and things like that.
Can I also just point out that that's 125 things in just 6 months, because they both didn't start until late December.
So, so you're saying library outreach staff. So we know we have the dedicated staff.
There's
There's
two.
two.
It's only two.
Two full-time staff, but they aren't necessarily attending all of the events. A lot of our staff step in and attend some of the events. So they do all of the coordination work, and they did attend, I would probably say 80% of these. So it is mostly our outreach team, but we do have other staff often, like, for example, if there's two things at the same time, one mobile outreach staff member would go to one and one to the other, and then another staff person would go with them.
Give me an idea. What are we talking about? They don't have a van. They're not going in the, say they're attending events. What does this look like?
So they're setting up what we call an outreach table most of the time. Some of them are actual events like a story time or something where they would go and do a story time somewhere else. But most of the time they set up a table. Like if you've ever seen us at the county fair, we've been doing that a long time. We basically have a table with all of our kind of brochures and bookmarks and information about the library, usually some kind of small game or interactive activity. You can think of it as kind of like a trade show table. And so they would do that at the larger events, but often we're invited to do kind of a small program at an event. So an example of that is there's a STEM fair for kids. And so they brought little like robots to the STEM fair, and the library had kind of a booth where people could come and interact with the library and learn about library services while also playing with the robots.
And another example is the Cinco de Mayo celebration they had in Leonardtown. One of the outreach staff speaks Spanish, so she did a Spanish story time.
I have one. So in the one sheeter that we got, I'm having trouble with the first paragraph, an 11% increase over FY 2022. Where back in the stat sheet should I be looking for an 11?
That is digital checkouts. So it is on there, I believe.
It's on there, yeah, for
I
digital.
think it's
Look at, yeah, look at on page 1 under digital circulation, far right, 11%.
I got it.
And then our meeting rooms are just picking up pace. So a big change was obviously Leonardtown having study rooms. They're incredibly popular and very heavily used. And so we had 1,800 groups using our main meeting rooms across the 3 branches, and almost 5,000 uses of our study rooms. And that's not necessarily individual. Those are different groups that have used that. So the actual number, we do not have like door counts for that because they're just in the library. But the use of that would be much higher as far as individual using those spaces. And so they've become very, very popular and such an asset to Leonardtown. And Lexington Park also has 2 study rooms. Charlotte Hall has a telehealth booth, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But essentially that can be used as a study room at Charlotte Hall as well.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, you go.
I might suggest then in that first sentence, the way I read it, it seems like the 11% covers both the 1,000,039 and the 168. And really, it only applies to the 168.
Okay, I will definitely take a look at that. And that would be fantastic if our million was 11% higher. We'll work on that for next year, but we're not quite there yet this year. But we can make that edit. The Leonardtown Library Makerspace has just over 1,000 visitors. And that opened mid-year. So it has been pretty heavily used, and the kids especially really, really love it.
When did the makerspace open?
Don't remember for sure. I'll have to look that up. But it was.
It just
I
might be nice to
believe
put like the
sometime in
month,
the
the month
fall.
and the year.
Yeah.
Was it October 22 or for some context here? I think
All of 2022, because it took some time before we could fully staff it and make sure that we were past all the COVID protocols.
I'm
of being-
thinking,
that's
I'm
nice to
thinking it
maybe
was,
put that, maybe just put that in there. So
I'm
we
thinking
get
it was
context.
November, but
I
yeah,
knew it
yeah.
was fall, but I don't
Yeah.
have the month for sure. So for technology access, we had 38,000 sessions logged on our free Wi-Fi. And that's computers. So we had 38,000 computer sessions. So that's people who came into the library to use our public computers. And then we had 20,000 Wi-Fi access pings. And so those are both heavily used. If you ever walk into the library, you often see people using our public computers. We also had about 1,500 people actively using our app. So if you don't have our app, check it out. It's really cool. My favorite feature is that you can check out books just by scanning them on your phone. So you don't even have to go to the really cool RFID checkouts. It's just one step even less. And so you can also find new books. You can search the catalog. You can see our events and all different things. We also have computer classes, mostly for adults. And we are focusing on Microsoft Office and now Google Workspace. So with the Chromebook giveaways that the county is doing and we are facilitating, we added Google Workspace classes to our curriculum so that if people have a new Chromebook, they would have a place where they could learn how to use the Google Workspace.
Laura, the makerspace opened last June, so that's a full year.
Okay, so 1 year.
Sarah works in the makerspace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
and
was fewer hours.
Fully.
We had like a grand opening.
Yeah, we had like a grand opening, but it was kind of a soft opening. And then we went to, I think it's 3 or 4 days a week now. But yeah, it's about 1,000 in our first year, a little
Yeah.
over 1,000.
it's not open the full hours that were open simply because we can't staff it. So I know Sarah, she works in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So
Jeff is in there some other days, but no, it's not open the full time. And in part because in many cases, unless you've been trained using some of the devices that are there is problematic. So if you don't know how to 3D program, you're not going to be able to use the 3D printer. So, but yeah.
So we currently have over 32,000 active card users. So these are people who've used their cards within the last 2 years, I believe. We also have, so a regular card checks out 75 items, as well as having access to all of our online resources. We also have kids cards and the St. Mary's County Public Schools smart cards. And so those are for kids who are under 18 and they have no fines, fees, and they also have a 5-item checkout. So they can access all of our online resources. The smart cards are only for SNCPS students and they use their student ID number. And so they're able to use their student ID number as a library card and actually can come in and check out items or just use the online resources for free.
Do students know that's available to them? I have
Uh-huh.
teenagers and they did not know.
Not as well as they should. We are planning a big push for this fall, because it actually launched in about April of 2020. So there were other things on people's minds. And so it kind of had a rocky start. And so I would say most students are not aware of this.
It
But we are
really
planning a big
depends
push
on
this fall.
the school.
Mm.
Right in back of us here at Duke Elementary, it's an incredible amount of use. In some other schools not. It sort of depends on whether the school media specialist knows about it, is promoting it. But as Laura says, we're going to try to do a relaunch where we reach out to a lot more of them and let them know. And it gets heavy use at the Forest Center. One of the teachers there who teaches computer classes, and computer skills for people who are going to become programmers, uses it with LinkedIn Learning. And there's lots of courses there. So very heavy use in some places, working on it in others.
But for your children, they can definitely use it right away. And all the information is on our website about how to log in and how to use the card. So that's kind of it for statistics. This is more of the things that we're really proud of this year. And so, like I said, partnerships were a really important part of this year. And so I already mentioned the Front Yard Project, but there was also a partnership with Blue Star Families that offered family book club for military families. And that was really well attended. And that was at Lexington Park Library. We also got new art gallery at Leonardtown Library and refurbished the Lexington Park Library art gallery. So both of those are up and running and showing art now. And then the telehealth booth at the Charlotte Hall and Lexington Park libraries have been a really neat asset. So those are from the health department, and they're a way for people who need to take like a private call or need to have a virtual visit with a doctor, or just, need a little bit of privacy while they're working. And so they can use it either as a study room or for medical visits. At the Charlotte Hall Library before this, there really was not a private space. And so there was nowhere for somebody to go where they could use a room for free and have these kind of private conversations. And then Lexington Park has study rooms, but they are booked very heavily. And so having a third option is always neat. The Patexan Partnership also donated funding to make the citizen science workshops possible. And that was a series of citizen science programs, like pollinators and night sky and that kind of thing. And we were able to run those once, and we do plan to run them several more times using the items that we purchased with that funding. And then obviously the mobile library. So that was a big project, and that team already reaching out. This is some of the places, not at all an exhaustive list, that they have already started working with. And then the last one is that we were selected as one of the 15 locations to host the World on the Move 25,000 Years of Human Migration exhibits. That is going to be in 2025. So we were just selected as a site, but we will be the culminating site. We will be the last site where that is held out of the 15 locations.
And that is a partnership with St. Mary's College, St. Mary's City, Sauterley, and the local museum board are all combining on that. And we've submitted a grant proposal. We were one of the 15 libraries selected across the country. So looking forward to that in 2025.
And how long will it be here?
It'll be here for 6 weeks.
And where will it be?
It'll be at Lexington Park Library, but then the various partners some of them will be presenting at Lexington Park on things like, archaeology in St. Mary's. Others might have an event at their own site. So it's going to be kind of while the display itself will be at Lexington Park Library, it's going to be kind of a county-wide sort of thing.
That's 25.
2025, yeah.
I believe it's
Like
June
June
in the
and
summer.
yeah.
No, it is in summer.
I think it's June and July, but we got a little bit of time before I got to think about it too much.
And that's it. The whole report.
Well, thank you for that, Laura. I
Thank you.
think that it's certainly been a year of challenges, but we are showing a lot of positive trends and certainly making an impact in the community. So moving on to our SMECO new classifications, you have reports in your packet from Charlotte Hall and from Lexington Park. that sort of compare May to June. And you'll see we're not looking at the kind of numbers there so much as we're looking at the different costs for things. And you see that some of the costs have gone up a little bit, and other costs have gone down a little bit. And we're thinking, well, we're going to have to take a look at, what the dollar figures are from one year to another. That is pretty much going to be a wash. There's not really been a lot of change in our classifications based on these. So let's see, the power cost adjustment for energy has gone up, and you see there's a whole bunch of zeros in most of these cases, but from 0.01276 to 0.01452, whereas 0.0046190, whereas the power cost adjustment demand has gone down from 0.25 to 0.17. So as I say, it looks like by and large, these numbers are going to be a wash, and we don't really see any particular change in our classifications with this.
I have a question on the front page on the June statement.
For which
Doesn't
location?
matter. It's the same on all of them.
Okay.
All right. So right-hand column under did you know, the PSC approves SMECO's rate request to increase distribution rates and restructure the rate classes for commercial accounts. I'm trying to figure out, are there only two ways to look at a SMECO bill? You're either residential or you're not, or is there some subdivision over in our side, which is not residential?
Although that's not my area of expertise, I do know that we have, we went from having two commercial classes, one that didn't have demand and one that did. And then now, and we went to having a small, medium, and large. And I think all of them are built on demand, except my experience would be that the smaller ones probably wouldn't have a lot of demand. It has to do with the power draw from motors and that sort of thing.
We know what category we're in.
Yeah.
It says large.
So in May, we were in the general service demand, which you said there was just general service demand and the other one. And then when they went to the new thing, we are now the general service large. It's on that second page and it's highlighted.
Yeah. But notice right away that
I
the
see it up there. Okay.
And as John pointed out, it is based on demand and energy use. So, we are pretty energy intensive by the time you factor in the most of it's probably going to be just the climate control, but there are a lot of computers out there. And, for many of our staff, as well as for the public, they get constant use. So that's sort of where most of the demand is going to come from.
you noticed how much Lexington Park uses compared with Charlotte Hall. And of course, we're half the building in Charlotte Hall, right?
Yeah, well, Charlotte Hall has only got 10,000 square feet, although we do split costs there with Smyrla. So it's, between this building sharing with the senior activity center and Charlotte Hall sharing with Smyrla, it can be a little bit more difficult to compare us to Lexington Park. But yeah, the size of Lexington Park and the HVA system does make a difference. Speaking of which, we are still not seeing the AC completely finished at Charlotte Hall, which is why we're meeting here today. We will go back to Charlotte Hall once that system's fixed, but I think the whole building probably needs a new HVA system.
Yeah, and you said you're having some energy analysts visit Lexington Park.
I'm sorry?
It said SMECO is sending an energy analyst to Lexington Park.
All three locations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Given that our co-tenant here is a rather robust activity, how do we know that the division of demand is where it should be?
Well, it's based primarily on the building division, and that's sort of, they would probably use more water because they've got the cooking facility, but we probably use a lot more power because they don't really have as many computers sitting over there or as many staff. So, I would say that without dividing the power meters, which the county did not wish to do, there's no way to do that precisely.
Thank you.
So although we've changed classifications, we're not thinking it's going to make a huge difference in our final bills. We will look and see kind of where those are going and do our best to plan for them. I don't know if you have received an email, but I ask that you do receive an email from the United for Libraries group.
We did.
Okay, good. They said they were sending it. United for Libraries is the Trustees, Friends, and Foundation division of the American Library Association. And you asked for training and information on library trends and library issues. And that's just one great place where you can see that. And they do talk about advocacy for libraries. They talk about, effective ways of running meetings. So that's for you to explore. If there's ever any one of those you'd like to do as a group, we can certainly try to set aside time in a meeting for that. And Marianne, did you want to say anything more about that? Okay, we get that through the state library. They pay for that membership in that for the whole state. So it's not a expense from us, but there is a fee associated with, but it gets picked up. So I hope that you'll find that an interesting source to explore.
Appreciate that. On-demand session or topic.
There's different ways you can do that. Some of them are on demand, and some of them are simply, okay, here's a web page with information on it. But there are sessions.
Schedule a live.
No, you don't have to do that. There are sometimes things like that offered that we could separately do. And we'll try to kind of make sure that you're aware of any of such things as that. They do have a conference. And there is a virtual attendance option for that conference. If you're interested, that would be something that the board money could go towards. And I think I shared information about that conference coming up with you. Grants update. Good news for the most part. So we got the ebook modernization grant, but that's our pass-through for the whole state for 9 county systems, including ours. It provides the Palace app, the hosting of it, the troubleshooting of it. And as Laura mentioned earlier, we're planning in St. Mary's, and I hope on Calvert and Charles, but we're still talking to them about the app is already live. You can go to Palace, you can download the app to your iPad, to your iPhone, to your Android devices and use it. It has ebooks and audiobooks. It offers content in addition to the statewide Overdrive platform. So it takes all that content and puts it in one place. And then we've also got content from the Palace Marketplace. So often on those Palace titles, there's not much of a wait because not many libraries are using this fully yet. So check it out if you haven't, and we'll be looking to make it a option. We're not going to say you've got to use this so much as with new users, we're going to make that the preference for getting ebooks and audiobooks. And then, but people who are still using Overdrive will have that option, and it's not going to go away. We hope eventually to get the Hoopla content in it. I was pleasantly surprised on July 7th to be informed that we have an additional $21,375.51 for the mobile library. And I told you that they were looking at what libraries didn't use all their grant funding from the last fiscal year, and they were going to funnel it to us. So we had $12,000 set aside for the mobile library collection for the year. So that $12,000 will get moved out to the other branches instead. And we will use much of this money just to fund the mobile library collection for the year. It does unfortunately have to be spent by September, but we can apply for an extension on that. And then there's a couple other things they wanted for the mobile library that we basically said, all right, we just can't afford that this money will go towards. So, and I'm told that that's not all. There may be more.
Clarification. So I'm kind of remembering that we had a vote to approve $50,000 for the mobile library collection. Is
Mm.
that, do I remember that correctly?
And we did, well, it wasn't just for the collection, it was for all aspects of the mobile library, including, for example, the wrap, if I'm remembering right. But yeah,
What,
so
wrap-
the
wrap?
collection is purchased.
The wrap.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had hoped to incidentally show you the wrap, but I'll talk about that in a second. But yes, so that is so. This is just some additional funding that's come forward. That money has been spent, yeah.
Also, that money was fiscal year 23 and this is fiscal year 24, so they can't cross.
Yeah, so, but I'm told there may be more. So to the extent that that happens, we're just getting a little bonus here. I applied for the state ebook grant doesn't really count. Each library is allowed to apply for 3 grants in addition to something like that's a statewide pass-through like that is. And we did apply for 3. We applied for one for the American Sign Language interpreters to be at programs. And we prioritized that one first. We also applied for a $20,000 grant to do the strategic planning. And we applied for about $2,600, I'm sorry, $2,572 to do memory labs, which is to say devices that will convert a VCR to digital, that will convert a old, 35 millimeter slide to digital, that will take cassette tapes and make them digital so that people can have all these things that they've collected over the years in formats that are really no longer valid and have access to them. And so I prioritized that one third and the strategic planning second. And I heard from the state library, good news and bad news. The bad news is that they did not approve the American Sign Language request. The good news is that they approved the other 2. And when we had questions about it, what programs are using for, I provided a complete list, and it's sort of like, I was a little surprised by the outcome. But so the good news on that is that there are other grants available possibly for us to create that. And we'll be looking at getting some of those grants and seeing if we can't swing that on our own. But there's also the option, and I think this way by why the decision was made, is that there's a statewide library for the blind and physically handicapped, and they want us simply to work with them more closely. And that might be a possible source of maybe some grant funding as well. So we didn't get that one, but we got 2 of the 3 that we requested. In addition, we did get a grant from Leonardtown Rotary, working with the Rotary District of Southern Maryland and Northern Virginia for $9,200 to put story walks in at Charlotte Hall and here. Story walk, there's a post that has an acrylic on it. You put pages of stories in it. Mostly young children walk around with their parents who are learning to read or developing their literacy skills. It's not like we're making people hike miles and miles to do this. So out here, it's going to be in the perimeter of that new garden out there. And at Charlotte Hall, we talked to the county and they've given us permission to put it along the multi-use trail, which is very close to the Charlotte Hall Library. So it'll kind of go up one side of that, and then after a short span, turn around and come back the other way, so that you're always reading while you're walking, as opposed to, having walked down to the veterans home and then walk back with nothing. So we also have a $50,000 grant that we're working on with the Friends of St. Clements Bay to put art out in this garden out here. So have to say that it's been a pretty successful grant set cycle here. And we will be looking at grants for one more thing. 2 of our 3 locations, we've had a visit from the Sheriff's Department to look at vulnerabilities. And there's been recommendations across both of those. We're still waiting for Lexington Park, but they have suggested that we install ballistic film on some of our glass. Ballistic film, there's a couple types. It's not going to necessarily prevent a bullet from coming through, especially high caliber, but it can prevent the glass from shattering. And in some cases, for low caliber weapons, it might prevent it's clear, you can see through it. The other thing they've asked for are, what are they called, Marianne?
Stop the bleed kits.
Stop the bleed kits. So I'll go out and look for some grant funding for that kind of thing. Just to obviously hope we never have to use it. But there are recommendations there, given the increase, unfortunate increase in mass shootings, that we consider some security upgrades on our facilities. But I have to say that, it's been a very successful grant request cycle for us.
Go ahead. I was going to propose in a minute that we take a 5-minute break. Do we need, I don't know, I'll ask if we'll need a motion for that, but you go ahead.
On the story walks, is this one story that stays permanently, or is this something you can change out every
No, you
month or
change
two?
them out.
Yeah.
So that's why there's acrylic, it's weatherproof. It's not like it's painted on the sign or anything.
Yeah.
So we have the option, say once a month, once every couple of months, of refreshing the story. There is one at Lexington Park already, and it's very heavily used. We'll kind of learn from that I was thinking we'd get the signs that were sort of tilted, but it turns out that those get much more sun damage. So we're going to get signs that go straight up. The kind of catch with that is that it has to be a Rotary hands-on project. So I'm going to imagine there's going to be some weekends when Michael is out there digging post holes. We will be, a couple members of our Rotary Club are SMECO employees. So we will probably be talking to them and saying, is there any way SMECO can at least let us have an auger drill? Work with SMECO and possibly working on that.
So about how many stories, I'm not sure how big the grant is, but how many stories are you starting out with?
It'll be 1 story at each location.
Right.
And the grant is for 16 signs at each location, and I thought that would be adequate, but our locations want 20 signs each, so the Friends of the Library have agreed to supplement the grant. No,
Discard books?
you take our books, yeah, and you work with those.
Slice the spine off and then you have pages. You just need 2 of the same book. And then you'd slice it and you'd have like 4 and 5. And
Something the librarians would be doing.
The librarians will take care of that,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And we will have to maintain the signs as well. I mean,
Okay.
the grant is on us, but if we run into problems, I'm sure Rotary will be happy to help. I know the president pretty well.
And then back to the sheriff's office. So they've come into all 3 branches?
They've only come to 2 so far. They haven't been to Lexington Park yet.
And what else have we done or should be doing as far as emergency preparedness, that the incident handling? Have you guys get regular training on that? Is it?
We
just
have received
as a
active
staff?
shooter training, yes.
Great.
And we do have safety preparation that we do. So tornado drills, what do you do in the case of a tornado? What do you do in the case of a hurricane? What do you do in the case of emergency power outages? So we do review those with staff. We tended to outsource the the active shooter training. The other training we have, and this is thanks to Marianne and Belinda in large part, is we have become the CPR trainers for the county.
Mm.
And Marianne and Belinda regularly have sessions on that. And our staff have been trained in CPR and the AAD use, but now the county, which does work with us, is having sessions where they train county employees too.
They provide the mannequins and all of the training equipment. So we're very appreciative of that because it is quite expensive. So they asked us to do 2 training sessions later in July. And so we'll be doing that. What department is it? It's a safety committee, I think, that we're doing.
Yeah.
It's the county's health and safety committee, of which I'm the vice president.
Oh, okay. Wow.
We also do hand training, and the active shooter is a video that every new employee must watch within the first couple weeks of employment.
And Tressa actually has provided active shooter training for us.
Yeah.
She's actually gone into each of the branches and made the training specific to the branch so that, people know what to do if it were to
Right. I
happen.
mean, like, so actual, not video is a good first step, but then actually going functions is
Yes. So
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
different when
So
you
we
actually.
bring Tressa in occasionally, and does another one where she specifically talks about all the exits in those buildings and what we would do and how we would do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched the video and I resolved I simply was never going to go into public again, but it's kind of a frightening thing. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
We try to keep up with it. Obviously we hope that we never have to use any of it, but I think staff are fairly well prepared.
We had this evaluation done many years ago, and as a result of it, I believe at that time, Lexington Park started locking their staff doors.
Mm.
So, we definitely take their recommendations seriously.
And so, John, if there's no other questions, you wanted to do a 5-minute break?
I
Yes,
have
we
a very
don't-
quick one if I
Sure,
may,
yeah,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chairman. On the story trail,
Mhm.
the hands-on part, could Eagle Scouts be roped into that?
Eagle Scouts would be more than welcome to join us. Now, that's really kind of on the Eagle Scout. We had to have, the Eagle Scout did the project at Lexington Park, and my sense is that to have it count is that they have to develop them themselves. So I don't know if having a pre-prepared kit show up, which is what's going to happen, is we're going to have the 2 kits sent here, if that could count for their project or not.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But they could do service hours.
They could do so. Yeah, service
look up,
hours could
they
be
could
done
do it,
that
yeah.
way. Absolutely. Yeah.
Questions? Thank you.
All right. All right. Do we need a motion to go into a 5-minute recess?
Yes, you should
All right.
probably do
You
a
want
motion to
5?
do that. Yeah.
I'd be
5 is
willing for
good.
10 if anybody wants
do
10.
5.
So 5?
Yes. I will make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is 11:06, so we're back in 11 after.
Um,
Move we
quick mobile
reconvene
library
in
update.
open
I was,
session.
I'm sorry.
I move we reconvene in
Oh.
open session.
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, John.
I was going to show you the wrap from the mobile library, but I have a very demanding marketing coordinator who wants a particular bird removed from it before she'll approve it. Therefore, you will see the wrap for the mobile library soon. It really is beautiful. I'm very happy with how it looks, but somebody didn't want it shown until it was just right. We are still hoping for a September 12th mobile library ribbon cutting. Unfortunately, we're still having delays in the supply chain, and the mobile library is not yet here in Maryland. So obviously that's a big disappointment. We are looking forward to moving in September if we can, but it will depend on when they have it ready for us. And it is completely paid for. The $50,000 capital grant from the state did come through, speaking of grants. So not to brag or anything, but in the last 6 years, we have received over $2 million in grants. So got to be happy with some things here, but we will keep you up to date on that. And I hope soon, certainly next month, to be able to share the what the wrap is going to look like. And within, I'm hoping 2 months, we can actually be walking on the vehicle itself.
Would there be a chance for the mobile library to attend the county fair the week after that, the 23rd?
If it's ready, but we are definitely going to have it in the Veterans Day parade.
Okay.
In
November.
when that happens, we've just registered it for that. It'll certainly be ready by then. If we have a presence at the county fair no matter what.
Sure.
So if we can take it there, we'll work with the county fair and see if you're going to have space for it. It would be a great way to show it off. And we'll just see if it's ready.
Do you have any idea right now where the ribbon cutting is taking place? Or where you
Right
know?
out here will be where this ribbon cutting will take place.
Barefoot Graphics doing the wrap. Reason I thought it was Barefoot Graphics.
Yes.
Yeah, it
It
is local.
Barefoot Graphics needs 2 weeks once they get the design.
Correct. Yeah, 2 weeks well, they'll have all the design. As soon as we have the final measurements of the truck, the design will complete at that point. Because right now we actually don't have, we have a design based on the specs, but it's not the actual truck. So once the truck gets to tech ops, they will do a full measurement of it and tell us exactly where the doorknobs are and where all the different things are. And then the designer will do a final design. And Barefoot Graphics will be involved in that. And then they will have everything ready to go for our estimated delivery, but it will take 2 weeks to apply it. It's
Right.
quite a
So
process.
where's the truck right now?
It's still at the builder.
It's still the builder right now, yes. And it will go up to Tech Ops, which is located on Kent Island, for the finishing of the work, and they do a lot of work nationally. And they assure us that it's not us, it's they are doing approximately 12 mobile libraries, and all of them have been held back. So some of the smaller ones that, like minivan size, have been completed and finished, but the larger ones are still held up, unfortunately. So every July, past boards, and if you don't want this, let me know. It'll save me some work. Have asked to see a staff turnover report for the year and a demographics report on staff. And so the turnover rate for fiscal year 23 was 23.5%. And you have a monthly breakdown that we get. Belinda has got this through our pay system, paychecks. And you can see there's some months when there's not been too many and other months when there has been more. Some of them are expected. So for example, at the end of a spring, many cases our pages are high school students or even college students, and they go back, they go back for the summer. We'll get new ones for the summer. So a lot of these are not necessarily unexpected things. It is down considerably from the previous fiscal year, which is great.
I think it's actually almost half.
Yeah, and the previous fiscal year, it was 38.36%, almost 40 actually. So it is substantially down, and we're pleased about that. I do present to you a kind of breakdown based on the reasons why people leave, and that's the next page. I've got one error in it. It should be, it says non-exempt full-time 2, and those actually need to get moved down to non-exempt. They were not exempt employees. We did lose one exempt employee, an assistant manager who relocated. And you see that nearly all the quite a few of them are people who retire, relocate, they leave for education, and that's often how we talk about the pages who leave. Family reasons for going. Others, sometimes we don't know. That didn't happen this year. The ones that we're concerned about are those who leave for other employment because we don't pay them as much. And we did lose a total of about 5 other people who went to other jobs. And sometimes those are library jobs, other times they're jobs on the base, and we'll never compete with the base in terms of salaries. We simply can't do that. But when we lose a library employee, we kind of like to keep, and because somebody else can pay them more, it's not something we like as much. We did let 2 people go this year, which is a first for me. It's never happened in my career before, but there were health reasons, and you have seen the reports on those as to what was going on with them. Just once in terms of dysfunctional, which is to say, people who we kind of wish we hadn't lost, there's 5 of those. Yes.
Under the retirement, are those our people retiring or a spouse retired and they're relocating?
No, that's our people
Those are
retiring.
Our people.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. If it had been that, I guess it would be under family.
Yeah, under family, if let's say where often this will happen is the base is a relocation. That's how, for example, our assistant manager left as her husband was transferred to Texas, and not surprisingly, she went along. But yeah, if a spouse retires and a person then leaves the area, that's family. So it is down substantially from the prior fiscal year, and we're hopeful that this year it's going to be even less with the raised salaries that are happening for most of our employees. In terms of the staff demographics, this is a hard chart to read.
Michael?
Yes, go ahead.
I just had a question about your reasons, other employment, higher pay hours. With that reason, is it specifically that they specifically said higher pay or hours? Because I was looking at school librarian in New York, and that feels like a position that would not have higher pay or hours, but it would be other employment.
Yeah, so I don't think we lost anybody to the schools this year.
It says school librarian in New York.
This was one of our call librarians. They have been wanting to relocate to New York. It was higher pay. It was a private school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't lose anybody at the local schools. So that, to answer that specific question, yeah. In some cases, other might be, I'm going to become a school librarian for the same amount of money, but I got summers off. Most of them don't. But that could factor into it as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was specifically something about pay or hours and
Yeah,
not something
and that
tangential.
was, there
that was
was a
other
substantial
improvements.
pay
All of
increase.
them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I chose the one. Most. Most.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
Because I do a lot of breakdown for you, but I can summarize it. Overall, the county, and these are 2022 estimates, at 72.2% white, and the library is at 70% this year, and was at 79% last year. For African American, the county's at 15.6%, and we are at 18.6. The Hispanic in the county is at 6%, and we're at 5.7. Asian at 3, and we're at 4.3, and other county at 3.2, and we're at 1.4%. Just to compare our total amount of employment compared to the county. So it's a better picture in terms of diversity than it was last year at this time. And I should point out, this is a snapshot. This is in June of this year. Yes, compared to June of the previous year. Yeah. So I think if you look down at the by position, you'll see that I think we have work to do at the highest levels of the library, branch managers, coordinators, directors, to increase the diversity of the library. Go ahead. They do not. In fact, this year none of them changed. We if you look at the very final page, you'll see that under library and assistant managers, I think we're doing better than the county average. Paraprofessionals, we are more diverse. But we do look at ways to try to increase diversity, reaching out to college fairs. We're probably primarily going to have to grow internally there. The reason being that in many cases, a diverse candidate might be looking at Washington, D.C. or Annapolis or Baltimore as a more exciting place to live. And so we will, we certainly go to, as I say, the college fair and have a presence there and try to indicate that libraries are a great place to work. The library profession as a whole needs to do better, I would say, at this. But we are at least above the county averages, and we try to stay there. And as I say, getting more diverse people at a senior level may be when diverse candidate could look at being the director of Baltimore County Library, or Prince George's County Library, or Howard County Library, for example, just the last 3 that filled with diverse candidates. We may not be as attractive a place for that person either. So getting people in from outside is difficult. So I think we're working on growing internally. And ultimately, I think we'll see more diversity at higher levels in the library. But my mandate from the board has been to respect and increase diversity, and we're working on it.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
On to action items. We have a couple of policies to look at for you. One of them is one you worked on last month, the weapons policy, and you asked us to investigate state law on that and just make sure that we were up to date with it. And Mary Ann looked at statewide policies, and we did run this by our attorney. And it turns out that in terms of permits, there's not a lot of difference between a open carry permit and a concealed permit.
There is no difference
Yeah.
according to the law.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the difference is where you carry your weapon, but in terms of the law, that's simply not a distinction that is made. As of October, it's looking like in Maryland state law, currently it will come into effect. The library would be a place where we can simply ban weapons outright legally. Currently, we're saying that by county laws, like at the courthouses, like at the schools, we too are included as a public place where there are especially young people, and we could say that. That law is being challenged. We'll have to see, and we may have to revise our policy depending on the outcome of the lawsuit over that. But right now, we'd just like to, with the exception of weapons carried by authorized law enforcement agents, we're just going to eliminate that part of the policy and say that's who we're letting carry weapons in the library.
And this
Um,
policy is almost identical to Anne Arundel County's policy. I went and looked at other libraries in the state, and that's what their policy says.
So that's the policy we'd like to have in effect. And as I say, we may have to change it come October, but this is the policy most libraries in Maryland do have. So I put that up for your consideration, please.
Can I ask, I guess, I don't know the history, why are we doing this? Why are we saying citizens with concealed carry permits cannot come into the library with their weapon?
We're not saying that if they have concealed, we would never know.
But you are saying that no person shall possess a weapon in the library. That's your intent, right? Except for law enforcement.
Mhm.
So my question is why?
For the safety.
Why are we
of-
saying
Well,
that?
the reason is because there is no difference in state law between these two types of carry. We're never going to know if somebody comes in with concealed, but
No, that's not my question. My question is, why do you want to prevent people that are legally authorized to carry not come in the library with their weapon?
Well, according to the new law, which depending on what happens in October, but according to that, we fall under what is called a sensitive place, which means our property is owned by the county government, and county government does not, in that law, it says you cannot have weapons
weapons of any kind
of any
concealed or
kind
otherwise.
on government property.
So this
So this is
basically
state,
just,
this is the new state law
Yes,
yes,
that I know came up in session this past spring.
it did
right?
pass.
it's passed,
And it
yeah.
passed, and it's effective in October.
Yes,
And that state law says you can't carry a weapon onto government property.
yes.
But are we government
We
Yes,
are.
we are.
property's government, even though the libraries, we're not government employees, right?
No, we're not
Library
county
belongs-
We
employees.
receive
It
county
could be argued
funding.
we're state employees because we're part of the state retirement system. But yes, we're
The
this is
library
definitely,
itself
this
was
is
just a
government
library.
property, and
Yeah.
the property is owned by the county.
So you're updating a policy to go along with the state law.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Did we take out the phrase about the library programs that included not having?
No, that's still at the end of that. I think one-time exceptions policy may be made by the library director in writing for objects used in conjunction with the library program. That's still there.
Right, but I thought it previously said something about
We
not
we added
allowing.
in writing, I believe, Michael.
Yeah,
right?
we added in writing.
Right,
yeah.
yes, but I thought that one also had something about not allowing the bullets, that it was just.
Oh, that would be,
So we took that out?
that would be it. That's not in there. That's
That's
kind
in
of
the other
just at
section.
our discretion.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
And I would basically we have recently had, somebody who wanted to do historical program, and I said, okay, you can bring in the musket, but you may not bring in black powder. You
Makes
may, bring in the mini ball, but you may not bring anything that will shoot it. And that's just kind of, agreement with these people who want to
Okay.
do historical things. Frankly, I'm more nervous about swords than I am about anything else, but there you go.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the new weapons policy as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Okay, a change to the 3D printing policy. We have had instances of people wanting to make things that could be considered dangerous weapons. I don't know if you saw the Washington Post article this morning about ghost guns, parts for guns. And so we're simply want to put something into our 3D weapon, our 3D policy that clarifies what we will allow to be made and what will be not allowed to be made. And part of it's just as we, did, last month we took out toy weapons. Some of it's just that as well. So you see the addition there in red to what the current policy would be.
And I printed out the full policy.
Yeah, you've got one thing was here for you, Marianne. Thank you for that. I only included the sort of changes in mind, but this is what the full policy will look like, is this one that has the large red section.
We often get 3D prints that we don't know exactly what it is, and we can't tell if it's a toy or if it's a real weapon. So we're just saying we're not going to do it.
So you've had a number.
We have, yes.
Sarah has to research when something comes in and she's unsure. She has to research. She has to figure out if it looks like it might possibly be a weapon. This just helps her make those decisions
So
in a
3D
fair way.
Not always.
No, it's
usually
usually, it
just
shows what it looks like, but a piece of a weapon can be any little thing. And people ask for parts to fix many different things. So
Oh.
we have to sometimes figure out, is this a part for a weapon?
And in other cases, we simply don't know and we'll pass it through. But we did have one instance where it was clear that what was being asked for was something that would turn a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic one. So we basically don't feel that's an appropriate use of the library's 3D printing.
well, I will move to adopt the 3D printing service document as expanded and as presented.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So for discussion, but part in action as well. Asset Strategy is expecting to meet with you in August, but they want to know if you would like to have a subcommittee, let's not call it that, an ad hoc group meet with them to answer the questions that you sent to them beforehand. And if so, I will happily arrange that for you, but you need to decide who would be on a financial ad hoc group. It couldn't be any more than 3. You can email, you can ask them questions, you can meet with them, but it has to be an ad hoc thing and it can't be a regular ongoing meeting. And at the end of, say, August, after we met with the whole group with Asset Strategy, that group would not be ongoing. So my question to you is, do you want to have a meeting so that Asset Strategy before the large meeting could address all those questions that you asked, and that group can report back to the group as a whole?
So have they had no response to my chapter 3 questions that I invited everybody else to add on?
They want to answer those. but they want to talk with you through them as opposed to sending you email answers and have a discussion with you about those. So John, I assume you'd really be interested in talking to them. And would anybody else kind of like to join John and having that conversation with them?
Anybody do it even if they don't like.
That may be a better question.
Board is comfortable with this, I would be happy to sit in and answer a question, and then the idea is we could kind of synopsize what we learned and bring it back to the board meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If that board's comfortable with that.
I have no
It's not the
objection.
end of, it's not the end of it, but it might be more efficient use of our time.
Exactly. Then having, here's what we're kind of hoping we can avoid is, all right, now we've answered your questions, and now what are we going to do about it? And I think if we hear the answers to the questions beforehand, that you can report to the board as a whole via email, hey, here's what we found out. Now you're not making any decisions about that, but we go into that meeting informed about what the answers of the questions are. So then when asset strategy comes forward and says, here are specific recommendations we make, then you're better informed about being able to say, yes, we want to do that. No, we don't want to do that. And I just kind of like to have them be able to either implement or not implement the changes that they're suggesting at the next meeting with you, rather than have to have yet another meeting with them later.
I think that's a good strategy. Would we want to invite Tressa to be on the ad hoc group, or at least ask her? If
I
she's
think we should
interested?
certainly
Mhm.
ask her to consider.
Do up to 3, so
Sure.
I think we should run it by both of them, maybe by email,
Yes.
and then one of them wants to jump on it.
All
I
right,
think
that would,
3's a good number.
yeah, it can't be any more than 3 because it can't be a quorum.
It
So
was a good
yeah.
explanation, I
So-
think, from the county attorney's office, and I think it was several months. You can run it for several months, but it has to be kind of I think it fits perfectly. We have a purpose, we
Mhm.
work towards the purpose, and then the group doesn't meet anymore.
But
I think that kind of fits what we want to do.
Are you confused in that opinion? Are we or are we not a county organization?
You are, the
We are not.
library is not a county organization. The board is appointed by the county, and the library board has to work within the guidelines of St. Mary's Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking is, it seemed like on one hand, for some things, are considered a county board, and that's what I read in that opinion. But on the other hand, our chain of command goes up to the Department of Education.
Yeah, they call us a state board when they do funding, which is not entirely accurate either. But we still, as a board, have to act within the guidelines of St. Mary's County Library. I'm sorry, St. Mary's County Open Meeting Act. So that's kind of where that's coming is, all right, even though you are not officially a county board, the members are appointed by the county, and we do have to act within the guidelines of St. Mary's County More Restrictive Open Meetings Act. So that's kind of why we wanted to get so officially, according to that, subcommittees cannot, blah, 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 but now they're interpreting the law a little differently to allow for this kind of more ad hoc exploration.
I think it'd be a good fit. It's things that we had in mind anyway.
Yeah, I think it's going to move this process forward, as opposed to constantly having to have a meeting where no decision is made about what asset strategy would like to do. And you don't have to do it. I mean, you can look at that and say, no, I don't recommend this. But I think it's time for us to go ahead and give them an answer. So I'm just hoping that will move it forward.
I noticed in our packets, we have a copy of the Investment Policy Committee as adopted on September 17th of 2021.
Yes.
Okay, not to prolong it, but I'd like to call everybody's attention to 2 items. On the second page at the bottom, if viable, funds should be traded electronically, ETFs. That's not the definition of an ETF. That stands for exchange traded funds, not how they are bought or sold. So that whole thing, when we get around to revising, that thing needs to come out. And on the following page, working up from the bottom, about 4 paragraphs, if the performance of a fund, everybody see that?
Mhm.
Okay, falls below its, and it says established, I was going to use the word relevant index for 2 successive quarters. The fund and the sole judgment of the board may be placed on a watch list for additional 2 quarters, after which that's like an entire year of sub performance. I can see 2 quarters while we watch it. And at that point, I think the board needs to decide, are we going to extend it for 1? Are we going to pull the trigger and get out of this one and get into something else? But not have it written so that we're going to go a whole year.
Well, John, I think that the ad hoc committee is empowered to look at this policy and suggest changes. So if that would be something that you as the committee would like to take a look at and then recommend some changes in the overall policy.
Okay, let's get that on the record, that that's part of the committee assignment, because going into it, I wasn't seeing that as part of our charge.
I think that that's something that you could do as people who are speaking with our financial advisors, and also as somebody who has experience in the area. So I think that that is something that you could do, is you could suggest revisions to this to the board as a whole to adopt.
Yeah, because I had wondered where the percentages came from for equities and fixed income, those target percentages. I don't claim to know what the percentages should be, but I was curious to know where the numbers came from.
Well, I don't exactly agree with the numbers that they're throwing. The numbers that I'm used to are a little less nuanced than that, shall we say. But then I took their numbers and their targets and applied it against the statements we just got from them. And in a couple of spaces, we are, well, in one particularly significant out of bounds in terms of what it is we desire. And I haven't heard a peep from them.
Well, and you will, when you meet with them, to answer the questions that you have put forward to them. And then I think you report back to the board as a whole. And then next time when they do present, you will be able to talk with them and make decisions as a board about whether you want to follow their recommendations or you agree with their changes that they are suggesting, with any luck to bring something within boundaries. But again, I'm going to, that's going to be a decision for you. I should say that we are going to have yet another change in the meeting next time. You may actually like it. When you change from Friday, we already had the summer reading meeting schedule the summer reading program schedule in place. So this space is going to be occupied by a reptile show about an hour and 15 minutes after you would start. So we're going to suggest that next meeting, and you will be meeting with Asset Strategy, will be virtual on Zoom, and we will stream that Zoom meeting onto our YouTube platform. So you would all just meet virtually. You could meet from at home. You don't have to come to the library.
Which meeting is this?
Next month.
August. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
The other option will
so
be to
you
have,
asset strategy on the schedule for August 11th.
yes, they are.
Okay, so that seems premature.
Well, we were going to have you meet with Asset Strategy before then. Would you like to have them come in September instead? All right. I can move Asset Strategy back. I'm sure they'll be.
Yeah. Through this process, come back to the board and let the board decide how they want to go. Yeah, my opinion, August 11th is too soon.
Well, if that is the case, may I suggest an alternative, which is that No, that's not going to work. So let me ask instead, you're also going to meet with asset strategy, and get some questions answered. Did you want to report back to this board in August?
We- that's probably would be our goal. But I think we have to get into this and see where we are. We would have something to report by August 11th. I don't know if it will be, how definitive it will be.
Getting lost. If
Yeah.
we're right now scheduled to meet with asset strategies, that's to receive our concern.
That's too soon. I don't. The board has to have time to meet and talk about our findings.
All right, so
Yeah.
you're suggesting that we put asset strategy off until September, and then you would present, our ad hoc group would present to the board as a whole with recommendations in August.
That's something to them. I don't know what it would be this time.
All right,
Whatever we come up with,
Yeah.
I think needs to be shared here
Yes.
and modified if needed, and then we go to asset strategies,
Or,
whether it's just
right.
us or everybody.
or for Steve, they may say, go do some more work, find out some more information. So I think we had to let the board decide. what it-
okay, well,
I think that's our goal should be, like by December, have this thing done. It might be sooner, but if we find out how much.
Do we need to formally establish the ad hoc committee?
without knowing if it's Tressa or Michael, I don't know you can fully establish it, but I think you could establish it as John and Judith, and say that you will seek one more member. And I didn't even know if you need to do it formally, frankly, because it's an ad hoc group. I suggest you not. I suggest you just say that this is going to be a group who's going to investigate.
I kind of read the opinion that way.
Mhm.
I don't want to make this too hard.
All right, so my instructions then are to connect you with asset strategy for a meeting when you are prepared, and you will work that out with asset strategy yourself. And you then can meet informally and prepare a recommendation. It may not be a final one for August. I was going to suggest we just not meet in August, but if you want to present to the board as a whole in August, then that can work too. So that's how we'll leave it. August might be a short meeting. It might just be primarily financial. I don't think that there's going to necessarily be any policies between now and then, but I can, give you news, and we can do the usual approval of OPEBs and things like approval of the EALs and that sort of thing. All right, thank you. Next Tuesday, July 18th, about 9:15, I will be presenting to the county commissioners. You have seen what the presentation largely is going to look like. We're going to use our annual report that Laura has constructed. But I will add just a couple of comments to that and field any questions they happen to have. You do not have to be there if you wish to be there. Please consider joining us. The mobile library ribbon cutting at 12 right here. I'm sorry, at noon on September 12th right here. Fingers crossed. It's still possible.
Is it at noon or one?
1 o'clock, 1 o'clock. It's September 12th. Yeah,
okay.
September 12th, right here at 1. Fingers crossed, it may or may not work. I do have very little news for you, but we have suggested that we will now go into closed session, and that has been announced to the public, and I have the form for closure.
All right.
If you would like to hear an update on the legal matter.
Before we close out this one, I think we need to get on the minutes of this open session that we were compliant in the closed session last month.
In compliant in what way?
That we talked only about what we closed to talk about.
Oh, that's not strictly speaking necessary. You just assume that you are compliant, and we released a report of what was discussed as part of the minutes.
And the chairman the chairman isn't here, but the form that he has to sign for all that stuff that's been executed.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And I gave that to him, and that was presented, and then we have today's as well, that gives a place for you to sign, John, at the end of the session, and we will just include that last time.
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to include that next time.
Yeah, the remote function, I don't think worked well for me last time. I was getting feedback, so.
Yeah. So we do have to have a vote to close the meeting. And I need to take note of who made the motion and seconded it. The members in favor, those opposed, anybody abstaining, absent. And then the reason for closing is 3305B8, potential litigation. And that is valid both under the States Meeting Act and the St. Mary's County More Restrictive Open Meetings Act as a valid reason to close the meeting. And at the end, we simply will end. We cannot and should not go back into open session.
Okay,
So I will move that we adjourn the open session, reconvene in closed session for the purpose of discussing litigation strategies.
can we hear a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Well, it has to be a roll call.
Oh. What's that?
You getting all the names?
Yes, I am.
All right. All right.
All right.
Well, I've got to have them on the forum too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and nobody is abstaining. In that case, you have closed the meeting